where the money goes to a corporate oligarchy. The food crops they once grew with their plow and their hoe been turned into opium poppies, growing row on row. Our infrastructure's crumbling, our social structure too. It's a corporate scam, they don't give a damn while screwing over me and you.
If you would like to hear Night Dreams Talk Radio on your local radio station, let them know. Tell them to check out www.nightdreamstalkradio.com, and thank you.
You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, from our compound to you worldwide, with your host, Gary Anderson.
And that is me. Our guest tonight is George Workman. Now, he lives in Pennsylvania. He's an investigator of Bigfoot, and he is also a researcher. Now, what type of evidence have you found so far? Have you ever got any, found footprints or stuff like that? And do you take a kit out there? That's a couple questions on one question, I should say. Do you ever take anything out there if you run across a Bigfoot footprint to, cast a, cast of it?
Yeah, actually I do. This past year, I ordered some higher grade casting material called dental stone that hardens in about an hour, and I keep it in my car just because it comes in smaller 5-pound bags, so it's easier to carry if I need to. I usually don't carry it with me unless I find one, then I'll go back. But yeah, I did get one. I did get a footprint cast last year in southern Ohio. Went on a expedition with the BFRO, and there was a sighting there while I was there, so kind of figured out where it was, and we went and got a couple casts, so it was exciting.
How big was the footprint? I mean, length and width and all that, compared to your foot?
Compared to my foot, it was similar in width, so it was just a few inches wide, but it was about 4 or 5 inches longer than my foot. So it was in water at the time, but there was it was a lot of mud there, and there was a lot of other tracks, and we were kind of pressed for time, so I picked the ones that had toes in it, that weren't anything other than that. But yeah, I mean, we even had a sighting too last year. I believe we did, so I could tell you that story if you
well,
like.
Yeah, let's hear about that. That's what you're here for. When you saw that Bigfoot, or thought you saw it, give us the area, what it looked like, and how you came across it, or what happened.
Yeah, so we went on this expedition. It was kind of a secret location. They don't disclose where they're going ahead of time. So there's probably 40, 50 people that were invited to go or signed up to go. And it was at a state park in southern Ohio. So I think it's 3 days. I actually went by myself on this one. So I knew a few of the people there, sort of, past acquaintances, but most of the people were new, and they were, new to the topic. And I've been doing this for, 5, 6, 7 years. So, and like I told you, I kind of know where to look, what to do as far as looking for, places to hike and things like that. So after the initial meeting and talking to everybody, I went to check out my campsite, and this place was totally surrounded by woods. I mean, there's a few houses here and there, but it's a state park as well. But I drove from the main area to my campsite, which is a few miles away, and I'm driving slow, and I'm looking, for tree structures, and I saw them. They were everywhere at this place. It's one of the easiest places that I've seen, because the group that organized it had been researching there. There was a lot of people having experiences there. One of the homeowner actually had things happening at his house, and that was where the base camp was. So they knew that there was ongoing activity. So yeah. So I'm just driving up there, and there's tree structures all over the place, and so I kind of leave the camp, and I get up to a certain spot and turn left, and when you look at the map, the aerial map of the location, there's a power line that cuts right from where the base camp was a few miles away to where I was going to camp at, which is actually not a coincidence, or well, not to me anyway. That I realized later. So when I got to my campsite, there was one of those. I mean, those tree bends that I was talking about. If you need two hands to put your at least two of my hands to put your hands around it, and it was still alive. So I thought, okay, this is perfect. I'm going to camp right here, right on this spot. So I set my hammock up and everything, and that night there was a couple teams dispersed, and one of them was right near where I was camped at, right along this power line that connected. And the group there had a sighting. Actually, they had a thermal, so a couple people saw it, and there was two of them, they said, and I think they were smaller in size. And I think they were just kind of peeking around the trees. They didn't throw anything or do anything. They were just maybe observing the small group of people that were there, sitting there, waiting for an encounter. But yeah, so after that, they didn't really tell everybody where it happened. So it was big news, but it was kind of on the down low news. But I wanted to know, so I actually figured out where it was. It was right near where I was camped, right along this power line. So that the day that I was leaving, I organized another small group of people that I had met there, and we hiked right along the ridge line, right across that power line, and right where the power line was, that's where all the footprints were. And there was tree structures all along. There was little asterisks that were there was X's, breaks. There was all different kinds of tree structures, so it wasn't that hard for us to find, and it was pretty exciting. We did it, in about an hour, because it wasn't really clear whether or not it was okay for us to be doing it because they were doing it too. The people that had the encounter, it was just a little ways away, like a quarter of a mile from where we were. So they were down there doing their thing, and we were at a different spot along the power line, getting our footprint casts. And that's kind of how it happened. And then I left right after that. So I got what I came for. I got lots of good pictures and things like that. So I was excited.
What type of encounter did the other people have?
It was they were sitting there in a circle in chairs, and they were passing around a thermal, and it came kind of maybe within 20, 30 yards. I think there might have been more than one. Maybe a smaller juvenile sized Bigfoot, and peeking around the trees and just looking at them. That's kind of all that happened at that time.
How big did they say? How big a juvenile Bigfoot?
I think it maybe 6-7 feet. They couldn't say for sure. I don't think they saw. They peek around trees and things like that. So I think they kind of just got that kind of view of it. And it's interesting because the footprint that I found would kind of match up with the size description that they had seen. So maybe it was the same one, or one or two of them.
Now, you said you saw one. What can you describe, or in detail, what you saw and where, and and all that stuff?
Oh yeah. So this was just before I actually went on that trip where I saw the footprint. So we live near Pittsburgh, and my wife wanted to go on a trip to D.C. which is about Washington, D.C., which is about 4 or 5 hours, and we signed up on a bus, so it was a charter bus, and there was 50, 60 people there, and I was excited because I didn't have to drive, because I have a problem when I'm driving, that I'm looking for these tree structures all the time, and my wife gets really mad because I'm distracted, but that's just what I do.
Have you ran off the road yet?
Yeah, I haven't done that yet, but I was excited for this trip, because I could just look out the window. I didn't have to drive. So that was my whole plan. I had cameras, I have a night vision camera, and I had another different cameras with me. So, we left before sunrise. This is in April, and so the grass, the foliage hadn't grown in yet. So we were about an hour or so into our trip, and we were on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and we're at mile marker around 128 on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and the sun had come up, and it was daylight, and we were coming around this bend, and one mistake that I made was my camera. It wasn't good enough for me to look through my camera and see things that that I could normally see with my own eyes. It was too far away, and the zoom magnification wasn't strong enough. So I stopped looking through my camera, and I just was looking out the window. Okay, just to set the stage. So yeah, we were driving, and I looked at the top of this hillside, which is about 200 or 300 yards and up, a steep grade, and there was sparse trees up at the top, okay, and there's no houses up there. There is one road, but there's no people living where it was. So there's these few trees, and all of a sudden I look, and I'm like, whoa, what's that? And I see this dark, black, human-shaped figure at the top of this ridge, and it was silhouetted against the morning sky, the blue. So you had some trees, there, not many. There's probably 20 or 30 in a short area at the top of the hill. So what I saw was maybe from the knees or the waist up, and it was just. Did you ever see The Thing? From the comic books, that kind of bulky, made of rocks. It was like the shape of the Thing, and I could see like a head and shoulders, and it was just so deep black. I couldn't make any details, just the silhouette. And we're going about 70 miles an hour, and I said, "Hey, what's that?" And my wife sat next to me, and she looked at it. She was like, "Oh, what is that?" And then I heard the lady behind me. She saw it too, and we saw it for about 5 or 10 seconds, until we went around the bend, and that was it. But it, it was there. It was definitely something. So I looked. I made notes of the mile marker. So because we were going to come back the next day on this trip, so I thought, okay, well, we'll try to rule it out. Maybe it was a bear, maybe it was a rock or a tree or whatever. But yeah, when we came back the next day, it wasn't there. It was just those little sparse trees, and there was no giant black human-shaped figure standing there.
Now, was any of the branches around there, those little trees, or broken, or any footprints, or anything established? Maybe it was standing there.
Yeah, well, we tried to go back there maybe 2 months later, and the road was blocked. There was one road. We drove all around this area. We just took the whole day to try to get up there, and there was a gate, and it said no trespassing. It was a Department of Pennsylvania Transportation warning. So we weren't able to go exactly to that spot. So what we did was we went to another spot across the turnpike, and we had better cameras and more time where we could zoom in to see much more clearly what was there. And